with with Deadpool 3 coming out and the X-Men finally coming to the MCU, we thought it's probably about time we review the X-Men movies. Starting with X-Men 1, I'm going to try to separate my feelings with these characters for as a comic reader as best as I can. I think the actors in this movie were fantastic, and I think the characters, while not perfect, I think they did the job. I really liked this movie, and I liked how they introduced all the characters, so at least everyone had a little bit of time to shine. But it seemed to me that some of the characters were still a little bit underutilized in this film. But I guess just starting at the top with the obvious stuff is Charles Xavier and Magneto, Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen did amazing jobs in the roles. They were absolute standouts. And I think if they had anyone else in those roles, these movies just wouldn't be as good just because of how much they brought to the table.
Yeah, one thing to take away from all of these movies is that this movie and the second movie are better than the last five iterations of MCU movies we've gotten
I don't
in the
know.
last two
don't know if I
years.
agree with that.
I could easily say so. I haven't seen an MCU movie in the last five movies that has been on the level
Not even
of these
Guardians
movies.
3.
Well, Guardians 3. Guardians 3, but Thor, not even Ragnarok's, is as good as either two of these movies. These movies set a bar. As you said,
I do
with
agree. Yeah.
Sir Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart in the roles. First of all, when they were announced in the roles, I think every 90s kid wanted Patrick Stewart to play Charles. I remember watching the animated series. I was like, it's got to be him. It can't be anyone else. And Fox was smart enough to contact Patrick Stewart and get him. Not only contact him, get him and make him believe in this project. And at first, I mean, I could just only imagine what these two guys thought, because both of them are serious Shakespearean theatrical actors. So for
One of
them
the
to have
best
been
actors of that
called and,
generation.
hey, do you want to do X-Men? They just at first they could, and even Ian has said at first he was like, what the hell is that? It seems kind of goofy. But then the way the story was pitched to them, which was this very, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King approach to it, that's what drew them in. And every scene that these guys have together, they just, they're friends, and without having flashbacks or any of that nonsense, you can tell there's a rivalry there, but there's
Hmm.
also a, brotherhood, if you will. And it was just that very first scene where they're together, when they have that back to back where, Charles tells him, you know, just give him hope. Just the line delivery that um Ian McKellen's able to deliver, where he's like, I'll bring you hope. Just stay out of my way. He's warning him, stay the hell out of my way, or it's not like back in the old days.
Yeah, I think they did a great job. And one thing that Edward said that I'd just like to elaborate on a little bit more is there is a lot of backstory between these characters. Like even like in the later movies, they say that there's all this history between them, but I do like how they don't show it in these three movies, just because that's not the main focus. And with what Edward said, just how they play these characters, we bought it. We didn't need to see their shared experiences to think, yeah,
Yeah.
those guys are friends, and we didn't need to see all of Wolverine's backstory, like everything before Weapon X program. And it's just, I think the writing was really great for these movies, and I think they adapted the comics pretty well. And like
Well,
these movies, yeah, no, there's I'll get it. We'll get into that part a little bit later on what we would have liked differently. But I think for someone who like doesn't know any of the comics or isn't familiar with these characters, they were introduced very well. It could have been better, yeah. But I think this is really what started Marvel. Say what you will about like the Blade movies. I think X-Men is really what started MCU on this track.
I think Blade, because we wouldn't, in my opinion, we would never have gotten X-Men if Blade wouldn't have done Well, the first two, as good as they
Yeah, I
did.
mean, I think the only reason of with that is they're rated R, and I guess we can get into that in a separate video. But I think just the rating of the movie prevents it from getting any further than
Yeah.
like these movies did, because these were rated PG-13. They were made for a lot wider bleh, a lot wider audience, and I think that's a key for them. There's only been a handful of rated R superhero movies that have done well at the box office.
This movie went through a lot of rough drafts, a lot of different scripts, and there were a lot of people that were supposed to play Wolverine as opposed to Hugh Jackman. Their first pick was Russell Crowe, and Russell Crowe immediately was like, "I'm not interested in doing dumbass
Thank
Russell
God.
Crowe." Should have done it though. He should have done it.
Yeah.
But he turned it down. He said, "No, I'm not interested in it." And then the guy they had next in line was I can't remember his name, but he was the villain in Mission Impossible 2. He's been in some stuff, and he was more noticeable at the time than Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman, they didn't. He auditioned several times. They didn't really want him because he was a Tony Award winner, which is a stupid reason not to want somebody.
He's a Broadway
But
actor, but he did a great job.
he did a phenom. He's done. You can say what you want about Ben Affleck. You can say what you want about Christian Bale, Robert Downey Jr. He's still playing the role. Here we are,
Yeah.
20 years later. He's still our Wolverine. That may change soon, but for all intents and purposes, the dude is still rocking it. I thought he was great in the role. I mean, you know, there's a lot of complaints about he's too tall, what have you, but I thought he was great in the role. I think he's still
Yeah.
great in the role. Every time I've seen him in the role, he just looks the part, and he's very happy to do it. He embodies the role perfectly. Just his look, his his it's just he's great. I thought the entire cast was great.
Oh
I
yeah.
love I love James Marsden as Cyclops. I wish he would have gotten a bigger role, but these
Yeah, we
movies
could
they made a choice very early on to just center themselves around Wolverine.
that choice definitely paid off for them, as like we've seen they've made how many Wolverine movies now? They've made a lot of money off of it. Yeah, ideally it's not the choice to go with, but they took a risk, and I think it paid off well.
No, it's a great movie. The plot of the movie is essentially it really does come down to Charles versus Magneto, which I love. Um, Magneto looks great, except for when he puts on his helmet. I think that part they never really got right with this first trilogy, which was Magneto's helmet.
Yeah. I think
But other than that, it was pretty solid.
I think all the costumes in the first three were there's a lot of I it wasn't something I was a big fan of. I think especially the first movie, the costumes and the music weren't quite there. There was the main theme I thought was pretty good. But other than that, I don't think music played too much of a role in this film when I think it could have been a little bit better. And the costumes were just a lot of black with some colored accents, but not really. It didn't help uniquely identify the characters or really help it. It just had that one color, like Aurora's white, later Kitty's pink, Wolverine's has like this brown. It's just I thought like
Yeah,
the individual
it was
civilian
all
costumes
very
were good.
it was all very militarized. It was all like they all kind of very much looked the same, particularly in the
Yeah.
first film. In the second film, they kind of changed it up, still all black. I didn't really mind the costumes, as opposed to, just other little nitpicks, but there's very little that I dislike about this particular movie. The special effects still are better than a lot of the Marvel shit that's coming out today.
Eh,
I'll, die on that hill with anyone that wants to argue about it. And I didn't mind the music. I just, a lot of people maybe complain about Ian McKellen being that old, but that's how old
it's
Magneto would have
fine.
been. That's, Magneto and Charles are around the same age.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
know in the cartoons and in the comics, Magneto looks like he's young, but with gray hair. But I didn't mind that. I thought they got the best quality actor for the role.
oh, especially since
Um,
they did keep the World War II backstory, so that would put him
yeah.
70 years old at the time. I feel like that was pretty
Which
solid
is another
casting.
thing that I really like about this movie is the way that it opens. It opens up with, a concentration camp and Magneto being a small child. The only thing I needed on that was to see Wolverine and Captain America. But of course we couldn't because this was Fox and whatever. But I still want to see that. and I may get my wish now with the X-Men finally coming over to Marvel. But that
We'll see.
that scene is very interesting. It shows Magneto's early reactions to people's hatred. So as a child, he experienced hatred towards his race, and as an adult, he's experiencing it towards his mutant kind, if you will. Um, the my gripe about this movie is my gripe with the further two movies, which is there are certain characters here that have so much history and that don't know who the fuck one another is. And that is
Yeah.
my gripe throughout this entire trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, we end up with like Sabretooth and Wolverine who don't know each other, which was later retconned. And it, like I said, I think they like it was an adaptation to get people to like more of the casual audience to enjoy this movie. And I think they did do that well, but just some of the choices seemed a bit odd. I do agree with Edward. I think Cyclops should have had a much bigger role. Rogue was in the first movie. I wasn't just it seemed like everyone kind of got a sideline and had like their couple of minutes of fame, except for
Rogue in
like
the first one could have been Jubilee,
oh,
or
100%.
Kitty. It could have been any.
And both those characters are even in this movie.
Yeah, it could have been any one of those two, and we would have got the exact same plot line.
Oh yeah.
The way that her white streak is explained makes no fucking sense whatsoever. The fact that Magneto powers that machine, passes his powers on to her, and because of that, she gets a white streak in the hair.
Well, it could be
And
like
one would
exhaustion
argue,
and stress.
yeah, but then one would argue that she would also keep his magnetic power. It just didn't fucking make any sense.
Yeah. I also don't
Uh,
know what's keeping her hands on it. Like why can't they remove their hands from the machine?
because he passed on his magnetic powers to
Yeah, but
her, and
she could turn it
the little things
off.
are magnetic.
So
She doesn't know
it's
how to
just
control his powers.
well, she can control everyone else's powers when she gets them.
I
I mean,
know.
we saw it
I'm
with
telling you, it doesn't
Pyro
make.
later.
I'm telling you, it doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Yeah, that's the part I don't like. It's just like not even the white hair, just that scene. It just never really made
Yeah,
sense
which
to me.
which I dig Rogue with white hair.
Oh yeah,
To
100%.
me, to me, like when she doesn't have her white hair streak,
It looks
it's
off.
just like she's just it's not Rogue to me. When she got it, she looked great, and I'm not complaining about the actress. The actress did a great job. She just never got
But
to see her fly or do some powerful shit like punch through a wall or something, which
yeah, it
bugged me.
was. Yeah, I feel like they could have done something if they wanted to, but without Carol Danvers in this universe, it wasn't really going to work.
Yeah.
Also,
But also they never paired her off with Gambit, which is another one
well,
to
we were
pair her off with
supposed
fucking
to in the third movie.
Bobby.
Yeah, well, we were supposed to in the third movie, but
Well, we were
they end
supposed
up.
to get Gambit in the second and third movie, but never pair them off together, which
Well,
is
she was going to be paired off with him in the third movie, but they didn't want to include him because he was going to be an X Men Origins Wolverine. But we're going to be
that's
paired off.
the reasons why Gambit doesn't appear in these in this trilogy is fucking stupid.
Agreed.
Lauren Sherlock O'Connor came out and said that essentially he's the same character as Wolverine. Nope, wrong, wrong.
Well, for the third movie, they did that. The director did want him, but they had to remove him because of X Men Origins.
Stupid
But
reasons.
I think also something that's just a little bit weird is they had like this father, like this more of a father figure with between Rogue and Wolverine, but then they end up turning it kind of into a love interest at the end of the first movie, which I thought was a little weird.
Well,
Very too.
I never minded that because it's kind of like the whole Batgirl Batman thing. I mean,
That's still weird.
she would look up and maybe be attracted to Wolverine. I don't ever think that there was a chance in hell that Wolverine
Oh
looked
no,
at
I
Rogue
wouldn't
and
say.
said, "I want a piece of that ass."
No, I
Rogue,
never. It's just like
yeah,
they had like
probably.
this father daughter thing, and then they had that at the end. I don't know. I just felt like
Well,
that
yeah, but
line could have just been tossed.
that was more from her to him than
Oh yeah, I
anything
know
else.
that. Yeah, I'm aware. I just felt like I don't know. It just seemed a little unnecessary.
I do like that they kept the dynamic between, Wolverine liking Jean and Jean kind
Yeah,
of, going for it, but Cyclops being in the middle. I did like that because that's straight out of the comics. That's always happened. It's also from the animated series, so
and it set
I'm
up the
glad they
tension
kept that
between
in.
the characters very well, and got some. It got some pretty good one-liners in there too.
I really like the fact that Wolverine and Cyclops can't stand each other because that's comics and that's animated series. They can't stand each other. I don't know who can't stand the other more. For me, I think it's probably Cyclops just because Wolverine just gets under his skin. Just because he's, a loose cannon, he doesn't fucking listen. And Cyclops is a straight arrow. I love his glasses. I had a pair of those. I have a pair. Well, yeah, no, I had a pair of those twice. Um, I thought he looked great, man. I really like his visor. Later on, they make
Mhm.
it much smaller, which I didn't care for. Halle Berry seemed great as Storm. I've always liked her as Storm. What I didn't like is that she has a very heavy African accent in the first one. Shit completely goes
Then they
away
drop it.
with every other film. It just speaks like Halle Berry.
Yeah, I never really got that. I mean, there's a lot of things
They
with
should
the
have just stuck
Storm.
with that, you know?
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of issues with the Storm character just as the movies went on. I felt like there's a lot of drama between Halle Berry and the director of the first two movies and the lack of development with her character that she actually wasn't originally going to return for the third film until the director left and they got a new one, as long as they expanded her role, which we'll get into a little bit later.
Yeah.
Do you have
Actually,
anything?
the third one is my favorite Storm look is when, what
Yes.
would we see her in the I hated the fact, well, I didn't hate her in the first one. The first one, her look was okay. The second one, I really like her look, but the third one is just she looks her best. I guess we could just jump right into X2, X-Men United.
Yeah.
I was really excited for this film, and
Which one do you like
it,
more, one or two?
well, I think it was one's got a better story, but no X-Men movie has been able to rival X2's opening sequence. That Nightcrawler shit
Yeah,
at
that
the
was
White
pretty
House,
cool.
they've never topped that. That was
Nightcrawler was
amazing.
really cool in this movie. I really liked him. I liked his look. I liked the actor that got for him, the way he talked, the design. It was really great. It's really a shame that they didn't want him to come back for the third one due to just the intense makeup process, but I think they really nailed it, and I really hope we get Nightcrawler in the MCU. I think this movie was very good. I really enjoyed the story. I liked this version of Stryker and how we were able to piece together some of the pieces from the past while setting things up for the future. And I think the characters, again, they were still great, but I do wish we just an entire trilogy saw more of Cyclops. It just seemed a little bit that I don't know. I think they were just too reliant on Wolverine,
Yeah,
especially for a team movie.
absolutely. 100%. My disappointments with X2 is the fact that three X-Men were supposed to appear in this movie. Angel, which is one of my favorite X-Men, whether it's Angel or Archangel. Gambit was supposed to appear in this one. Beast was supposed to he's got a very small cameo role in this,
Very small.
which I really dug. And there's also a very small hint at Gambit in this movie if you go back and watch
Oh
it.
yeah, there. Oh, I won't say it.
But the fact that they didn't appear, they Beast and Gambit were quickly tossed out, like towards the very beginning. They were like, nah, we're not gonna use them. But there's, if I own this shit on DVD and Blu-ray, and if you go and watch the behind the scenes, there's footage and there's like blueprints of what they wanted. They actually wanted Stryker to turn Angel into Arcade. So the story was going to be completely different. This story was going to center around Warren Worthington III. His father was going to, fund Stryker's whole fucking operation, and he was going to turn his son into Archangel with adamantium.
That could be pretty
Um,
cool.
a lot of fans would have been like, no, we wanted that with Apocalypse. We got that with Apocalypse. That shit
It
sucked. We'll talk about
sucked.
that some other time. Um, so it didn't happen. They scrapped it at the last moment, and what they did was they recentered the whole thing around Wolverine yet again, and we got Stryker, and we did get hints at Wolverine's origins, which I thought was cool. The
Yeah,
whole,
I think
Weapon
we
X
still got
project.
enough of it. I mean,
Yeah,
without
we
outright
got
saying it, without doing flashbacks.
Lady Deathstrike. You know, um, So I wasn't happy about that. I did really like the cast. I think that William Stryker, first of all, the actor's phenomenal. I'm glad that we kind of drifted away from Magneto
Yeah, same
as the
here.
main villain, and we got a human villain, which I thought was dope. Because in the first one we got Magneto. This one is like the human element. Humans. There's certain humans that really hate mutants,
Yeah,
and Charles is all for protecting these people.
yeah. I think the villain did a great job. I liked their plan and how they entrapped the characters. I thought that was pretty unique, and I liked seeing the all the pieces line up, and even Magneto helping for a brief period of time, because that does happen a little bit in the comics, and I do think that fit together with the story very well while still having everyone's separate motivations. I like the hints at seeing Phoenix. I thought that was pretty cool. I like seeing the effects.
I did so too.
Yeah,
I thought it was too soon, but I really dug what
yeah.
they wanted to do with that.
I
Um,
don't think that Phoenix should have been in any of these movies.
I think I think she should have. I just think that, clearly, and that I don't think that's my opinion. I think they did a poor piss job of it
Yeah,
in these movies and then the next ones, which we'll eventually talk about. But one of the things I forgot to say about X1 and now that we're doing X2 is Rebecca Romaine Stamos. I mean, Rebecca Romaine, not Stamos, that they got divorced. She did a phenomenal. I don't care what any of you have to say about Jennifer Lawrence. I never gave two fucks about Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique, and neither did she, by the way.
yeah,
Rebecca committed. She was in full body makeup and prosthetics for hours and hours and hours on end, and she loved the role, and she looks great as Mystique.
yeah.
She
She
loved the
does.
character so much. Then in X3, when she loses her powers, she got into a big argument with Brad Ratner, the director, who's a dumbass, about how he wanted her blonde, and she was like, "No, Raven, when in human form, she's got black hair." She was like, "I won't film the scene if we don't." And props to her because she got her way.
Yeah,
Um, but that just shows her commitment to the character. Like she knows what the character is, she knows what fans expected. She was like, "I'm not willing to waver for it."
I agree. And it's
Here,
nice to
she
see
did a
that
great
these
job.
actors like read the comics, know about the comics, and full on try to keep up with it. I think that that really helps these movies when you're a fan of the character, and I think that really showed for her performance. Albeit half the time Mystique's on the screen, that's not her playing it. But the scenes that she was in, I think she, like you said, did a great job. She's I don't know what else to say about her. I think she
And
did
she looks
great. The makeup
phenomenal
looks
in the role.
amazing.
She's half-ass naked most of the time. Um, and she rocked. These movies were filmed in, Vancouver. So even she said it. She's like, half the time I was fucking freezing to death, but
Yeah.
it's part of the job. And she had a great time. And she had never done martial arts in her life. And she, Mystique's a martial artist, so she went out and she learned what she could. But as Griff said, obviously there's some stuff that's done by stunt doubles, and you can tell. But the
Yeah.
rest of the cast is phenomenal. The dude that plays Nightcrawler was perfect. I love the body. I even love the little extra added stuff that they did with him with his carvings that he's got all
Oh,
over
with
his
the
flesh.
angelic symbols or
Yeah,
what they called it.
that's
Yeah, that was really
that's
cool.
because that's something that was made for this movie. That's not part of like Nightcrawler's, comic book origins. But I like the fact that he was like, as Griff said, all the, Storm asks him, he's like, oh, they're angelic symbols, that the
Yeah,
arcane. I thought that was as a Christian and or Catholics out there, I think that's a little nice touch. I like the fact that
I
they
agree.
kept them Catholic because Nightcrawler in the comic books is a Catholic character. He's got his rosemary. He's praying half the time, which annoys Wolverine, but it also annoys him in the comics. So I thought that was fun,
I do
and
wish he was in this movie a little bit more though.
I think well, for me,
I mean, it
I know
just
why we didn't see him in the third one.
yeah. I
Just
mean,
stupid.
I just think in this movie, especially like he's like the new character. He was just seen when people need to be moved from one place to another. When just like having him, just like a few lines, just being there and helping. I think that would have been kind of nice.
And I love
And
the fact that they kept his accent.
yeah, the accent was
Because they
very
could have
good.
with movies like these, particularly back in this day and age when they were making these, it's so easy to just be like, yeah, fuck it, let's not do the accent, And there's been several characters that they've done that with. They kept his, German accent, his Catholic origin, his look. I could have gone for him in a suit though. That would have been nice.
Yeah, I again just I think just having them in just more of unique costumes would have been very nice. It's just whenever I picture X-Men, I picture them in their vibrant costumes because they always
Yep,
look just
same here.
so cool.
100%.
That's the
Which
only thing
that's
I was
another
really
one of the
missing.
things I hate about this trilogy is the reason for, and they even have a pun about it in the first movie where
I'll
Wolverine's
take the
like,
spandex, the
yeah,
yellow
well,
spandex.
where Wolverine's like, you guys go outside in these things, and Cyclops tells him, would you rather have yellow spandex? It doesn't have to be span. We all now we know it doesn't have to be spandex. Batman was never running around in Burton movies in spandex.
You know, you could just have like cloth instead of just all this leather. I do like, again. I think all their civilian clothes looked great and really onto it, but it just would have been a little nice to see.
We got the Blackbird though, which I
True.
was a big fan of as a kid. I just every scene in the X-Men animated series where they flew it with their Blackbird, I just lost my shit. Here we get to see it. Cyclops pilots it alongside with Storm. I like the fact that the girls here are not so dependent of the dudes, like
Yeah,
Jean and Storm go
they've
off on
always been
their
strong characters in
adventure.
the comics. I'm
In
glad
this one,
they
Storm
carried it
controls
over.
the weather. She would fuck you. Like I wouldn't even, you know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
wouldn't even mess with her. I'd be like, nah, that's it. I'm good.
And one thing I do like, while there is very minimal blood in these movies, I am happy that they kept the killings, especially on Wolverine's side, instead of just like doing it off screen or just taming it down. I am glad that we did see a lot of characters die in these movies, and I thought that definitely added to it and made this feel more realistic and got people more invested in it. So I'm very happy about that.
I agree. I agree. And we get to see Wolverine's Berserker rage in this movie
Yeah, I
pretty
mean
early on, which is really cool. They have this entire sequence where Stryker, forget about spoilers. If you haven't seen it, you don't care. Stryker invades their school and
that was such a cool scene.
it's just Wolverine at home,
Yeah,
as the adult. And he really protects the children. And there's a
yes,
scene where we get to see Colossus, and it looks really cool.
he
I'm just
does.
pissed off that we just saw him once.
Well, he's in this movie. We saw him a little bit in the next movie, but yeah,
Yeah, but
it's just a lot of the X-Men have such a diverse catalog of characters. It's really hard to choose which characters to use. I just wish that more people got more screen time. Like, yeah, having Colossus on the side, it's cool cameo, but there's just so many that just would have been cool to see. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I've said that a few times now. It's just
my issue with
so many
one of
things
the
I hope.
cameos in this film is Hank McCoy's cameo. Not a problem with the actor that plays him, whose name I don't know, by the way. I don't think any of you guys know.
No,
Um, my problem is he's clearly left the X-Men at this point. He's a doctor, he's off, doing interviews and what have you not. My problem with that is that in the third one, we see him in his beast form. And that happens while he's with the X-Men. So there's a problem there with continuity that,
yeah.
it still bugs me to this day.
I mean, there's a lot of things. Like, there's so many recastings in this movie. Like, they had the same actress for Kitty Pryde in the first two movies, recast in the third. There's a handful of others I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's just so many recasting of background characters when they finally get on
Pyro,
screen. Pyro is just
which leads me to
I
my
didn't like it.
example of the whole accent thing. Pyro just speaks in a normal American accent.
He's just
They
a
don't even
dick.
he doesn't even try to, and he was recast. I think the recasting was better because the actor that plays him in X2 is much better. Well, I can't say because I've never seen that other boy act any more than X1, but I think he's a solid actor, what we got. And I love the dynamic between Pyro and Magneto because Magneto slowly starts to, manipulate Pyro like,
Yeah,
and fuck these people. They're never gonna let you be who you could be. Um, and I think that's a very interesting dynamic because Magneto sort of sees himself in this very powerful but very young mutant,
yeah,
which I think is awesome. The ending of this movie puts us, at a new place where the president kind of is like open-minded about mutants. We were going to get a Sentinel in this movie, but the only thing it was going to do was it's going to roll into Cerebro and rip it out, and that would have been it. So I'm glad it didn't happen because that was just going to be a waste of time.
I don't know. We did get a Sentinel in the third one, and that really didn't do anything either.
Yeah,
I guess
that's
moving
true.
on. Well, I guess with that is like the Danger Room was supposed to be in the first two movies, just due to budget cuts of the second one in particular, because they did have a scene with Wolverine. It was even in the trailer for this movie, the with the Danger Room. But I'm glad we finally got the Danger Room in the third one, and it was cool seeing Danger Room, the training simulations, and actually seeing a Sentinel. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I like the Danger Room. It's always been a heavy favorite of mine, because it's from the comics, it's from the animated series. I did really enjoy that scene. Again, This movie originally was going to be directed by Bryan Singer. Bryan Singer for all sorts of shit that we can't get into right now. Bounced. Then
He
it was going to
even
be Matthew
he's
Vaughn. Matthew Vaughn actually is credited with casting Kelsey Grammer as Hank McCoy, which I think is
fantastic
one of the
casting.
most brilliant castings ever. And we'll get into that in a bit, but he had his version of the movie was going to center around again, fuck my life, Angel, which what we ended up getting slightly hints at it, but only in a very small way. But essentially, the entire movie was going to be centered around Angel, and it was going to have Apocalypse in it. Apocalypse was going to be behind the cure, very much as he is in the animated series, kind of just tricks people. So we were going to end up with Archangel. But then Matthew Vaughn got really pissed off because they essentially, as Griffin was hinting at earlier, Fox, they wanted Halle Berry back, and they tricked her into coming back into the role by basically telling her that her role was going to be much more expanded, blah, blah, blah. When Matthew Vaughn got word of this and also his script was being fucked with, he was just like, you know what? I'm gone. And
Yeah.
then we ended up with Brad Ratner. Brad Ratner, he's a Rush Hour guy. Do I need to say anything more?
There was a lot of problems in production with this movie, and I think the biggest thing, we've seen this happen to other studios before, is Fox rushed it so much. They rushed it so much that two of their main actors for Cyclops and Mystique were already filming other projects. That's why they're not in this movie for that much, because they couldn't film it. So they had one day to film each of their scenes instead of just waiting to make a better movie. Like Cyclops is a big part of the Dark Phoenix story, and he's in this movie for 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah,
It's
there was a lot of problems in the production with Brad Ratner. His antics were, not gentlemanlike. He had a lot of issues with Ellen Page, Elliot Page now, who, at the time played Kitty Pryde, which I thought she was great in the role. I thought she
I
did
thought
a
so too.
great job. I thought she was cute. I, I just think I bought her as Kitty.
Yeah,
In my mind, I never even thought of the other two chicks or the other chick. I just was like, oh, Ellen is as Kitty, and I thought she was funny, and I thought the scenes she had with Iceman were cool. I was happy to see her come back for Days of Future Past, which we'll talk
same here.
about. Because I really dug her as Kitty, and but we all know that he's got a certain situation going on now where he's at the time she was kind of discovering herself, and Brad kind of like made a big thing about it on set and like essentially embarrassed her in front of the other stars. Many of her co-stars come out and defended her, so
That's
that's
good.
shitty. That's very shitty of him to have done. He also gave Anna Paquin a very hard time, where Anna Paquin was like, she can't lose her powers, because she takes the cure in this stupid ass movie, and Anna Paquin was like, no, Rogue wouldn't do that, dude. And
Yeah,
he got his way, and Anna Paquin was like, I'm never visiting this universe again. He was just really a dick to work with, and no one in this film really had that great of a time.
yeah,
He was always pulling like weird shenanigans, and it just happens when you go from basically three directors. The movie got redrafted, rewritten so many times. We ended up with a really just mediocre result. I think the one savable thing from this movie would be Kelsey Grammer's Beast.
yeah.
Elliot Page as Kitty Pryde. Rebecca Romaine Stamos again. Her role was minimized, but I think what we did see of her, I think it was phenomenal.
Yeah, I think it definitely helped with the story too, even though it was reduced than what it should
I
have
don't
been.
have an issue with the actor Ben Foster who played Angel, aka Worthington III. That with the very small screen time he has, I think he did a phenomenal. I could feel that dynamic from because that's from the comics and also the animated series, where his father's kind of ashamed, kind of worried about
Yeah, and
him.
that first
You
scene
know,
with him is so disturbing. Even as a kid watching this and watching it now, it's a disturbing scene
yeah,
to watch.
he's really literally sitting there like trying to rip his wings off, which is
Ugh, I
traumatic
hated
as
it.
balls. And then later on, but the only thing we get, and pisses me off because he's one of my favorite X-Men characters. We only really ever see him just break out that window and fly off. He doesn't go and join the X team. He just go end up in their mansion, but there's not like he's one of the original X-Men.
Yeah.
It's why the fuck like give the kid a suit,
Yep.
have him join the end battle. After all, it is his father you guys are trying to rescue from Magneto, and then it was weird, and it's sad to see elements of where it was going and where it ended up.
Yeah, I think going along with that, one thing I didn't like about this movie is there's two big plots they combined into one movie that's I believe shorter than the other two. They have the Cure plot line and the Dark Phoenix plot line. It just felt like Dark Phoenix kind
And
of got
neither,
left to the side.
and like you said, when you have two stories like these, two big, the whole Cure thing is from the comics, and the whole Phoenix saga, we all know what that is. Neither one of them got their big moment, and it felt like too much shit was going on. It's like, what are you doing? The Cure, Phoenix, what are we
Yeah, I
doing
mean,
here?
even if they didn't have Apocalypse and it was just exactly what we had on screen, you could have still done so much more with it that still would have played to the political tension you guys have been building up to, still involve all the characters, and it would have been a great movie. I feel like if they just stuck with one of those plot lines, and unfortunately, like Edward said, they kind of just did neither.
And you know what? You know what really pisses me off? That
What
Cure,
didn't even
that
work?
shit didn't work.
No.
It
Well,
maybe
okay.
took your powers away for
Here's
like
the thing with
months.
that. Originally, even in the third director script, it did work. But then Fox wanted to make a fourth movie and they canceled it from being a trilogy. So those last two scenes were filmed after the fact in secret, leaving it open ended when it was supposed to be a hard end. So the Cure was supposed to work. It's just they wanted more money, and the fourth X-Men movie
But
never got off.
that leads into my sorry to go back in circles, but that just leads me back into my whole gripe about this movie, where originally the original plot behind this, Matthew Vaughn's plot, if you will, was the cure was just a hoax. It was just to
Yeah.
get like it is in the animated series. It was just to get you there, turn you into a mindless monster for Apocalypse, which I really dug. But they couldn't really stick the landing on where they wanted this movie to go. A lot of people that read comics, Griffin and myself, Fox just didn't know what the hell to do with the Phoenix Saga. Just did not.
Yeah, and there's another one. It somehow got worse. But if you do want, like the original comic with the Cure, it's written by Joss Whedon. Say what we will about the guy, but it's called Gifted, and they actually did make, I think, 2 or 3 seasons of the X-Men show called Gifted. The first season is actually pretty good. So if you are interested in that, go watch that show because it's better than this. One thing I didn't like is they have a lot of background mutants, and they're named with like this Kid Omega, Psylocke, a bunch of characters that are like
Yeah,
really
Psylocke's in
impressive.
here,
Yeah,
and
really impressive
That's
X
another
Men
thing that
roster.
pisses me off because I'm a big Psylocke fan because she's got a lot to do with Angel. She's just some chick in the background who phases through shit, and I'm like, that's that's not no.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting to. Like all these
Sticks in
background
here,
characters.
Spike, I'm sorry, is in here, and you're like, what the fuck, that's not Spike. It's just
Yeah, it's just they have all these background characters that you kind of just gave powers to. Like Kid Omega is one of the most powerful mutants in X Men. Yet they just gave him the character of another X Men called
yeah, it's
Quill,
just like they
and
were
just
in.
didn't even rename them. They just wanted just the names in the credits just to show people.
It's just like they
But
were
it's
in the
just kind of
studio and they
lame.
were like, "You look a reptilian, lizard boy. You look
One of them
like you
was
spit
named Liz.
fire." Yeah, I know. Lava kid, or it's just like, what the fuck was going on? They, it. Matthew Vaughn has been in many interviews where he was like, "What do you think about X3?" He was like, "I could have made a lot. I could have made that movie 10 times better." I believe him because later on we got him for First Class, and that
Oh,
movie's
so
a
good.
thousand times better than this fucking
I mean,
movie.
even Bryan Singer when he left, he said he regretted it. He went to go do Superman Returns. He regretted it before the X3 came out, when he was watching X3 and after X3. He really wished he got to make his movie. Frankly, I think I think his movie would have been a lot better. I think any of those movies would have been a lot better. I never understood why people struggle making X-Men movies. It's so simple. You got so many great story arcs. Why change it?
I don't know. I will say this. The other day, a friend of mine and loyal subscriber of the channel, Gustavo, suggested a rating, and he suggested, is it worse than She-Hulk?
It's a great rating system.
It's not worse than She-Hulk, but it's pretty bad.
Yeah, I think one thing that just puts it all in perspective is if you asked me like 5 years ago how badly I'd rate this movie, it would be lower than what I'd say now, just because of all the crap that's come out and the seeing Batman and Robin and Daredevils like this could be a lot worse.
Oh
But it
yeah.
also could have been so much better.
Oh, and see, that's the
God, killing
saddest part
Cyclops
about it.
off was just
That's
ugh, I hate it.
that's what's really sad about it, is that again, it's centered around Wolverine. It's not as good as it could have been. And it could have been a great film if Fox would have just let Matthew Vaughn cook.
Fox likes money too much and they manipulated every way. And it's just this is what happens when you get too much studio involvement. If you didn't believe Warner Brothers and DC, here's another example. This movie. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. And as always, we'll see you guys next time.
Take care, guys.